Hey everybody, and welcome back. I'm Brent with Tracewater Homes, and this is the Tracewater Homes podcast. I am joined today by Matt, and we have a special guest, Paul Deorgio, our architect that has put in so much time and effort into designing all of the plans that we offer. Paul, thank you so much for joining us today. If you wouldn't mind, just go ahead and introduce yourself and maybe just tell us a little bit about your background and kind of how you got into architecture to begin with, and what drew you specifically towards residential design.
Sure. Hey, good morning, everyone. Happy to be here.
Hey, good morning.
I grew up in a neighborhood that experienced a lot of growth in construction in the 80s, and that kind of gave me a curiosity about housing. So I decided to go to architecture school, and not a lot of architects want to focus on just residential design. There's maybe not as much glamour or maybe money in that compared to commercial architecture, but it was my passion. That's what I grew up around. So my buddy and I would go to model homes, we'd ride our bikes and grab their plan brochures, and we'd come home and start designing our dream homes, based on these brochures. So it really kind of ignited a passion for home design. So went to architecture school and got out and decided, I want to go work with a builder. So I spent almost more than 30 years at this point, mostly in builders' offices, running the design department, kind of being the creative idea guy, and then bringing that together with the technical aspect of good, solid construction drawings to communicate all the little things that a builder needs to have on a set of plans and a quality document. So that's kind of a quick snapshot of how it started for me, and I just followed that passion, always sticking with home design and in the builder's office usually, or for architects who focused on residential design. And anytime I stepped away from that across my career, it didn't last long. I just kept coming back like a moth to the flame. Like it's where my passion lies. And I love working with homeowners and builders alike to see the evolution of a plan design.
Yeah, that I love that piece of it because your journey in the architecture world and my journey in the building world are very similar and actually follow a similar timeline. Both of us growing up in the 80s, and I was the one that would be, taking the lumber out of the dumpsters and building forts out of them.
Same here.
So
Yeah.
yeah, we had the same path growing up, and just the passion around it, and I've just never gotten away from it. So it's cool to hear your story on that.
And plus we have the greatest music. So
Well,
probably
this
helped
is
fuel that passion.
very true.
Man, that was pre-internet. Y'all had to figure out some way to entertain yourselves, take lumber out of a dumpster. Nowadays, kids build stuff in Fortnite or Minecraft or something.
Yep.
Garbage. They're missing out.
Well, Matt, I guess maybe I'll let you answer this question, because you had a relationship with Paul before, we started Tracewater Homes. So how did you come to know Paul, and then, how did you decide to bring him into Tracewater Homes?
Oh, wow, yeah. So, Paul and I met through, a builder that we both know and, had worked with, and, just resonated, like, Paul's design style and everything just resonated with me so much because I've always been such a firm believer in, using square footage efficiently and figuring out ways to be creative in the design process. And, from the first time I met Paul, which was about 10 years ago now, that just struck me right off the bat that, hey, this guy gets it. And so when we decided to move forward with Tracewater Homes, there was just no doubt in my mind who needed to draw our plans. And, that it just kind of evolved from there.
Yeah, awesome. Well, I agree with everything you said. I mean, I didn't know all of that about Paul prior to working with him at Tracewater, but I would agree, now having gotten the opportunity to work with him as far as the efficiency in design and, the passion for what we're doing. I mean, I see all of that. And so I guess, Paul, I'll push this over to you now. What drew you to working with Tracewater Homes when Matt first approached you with kind of our initial concept of the 5 plans and various square footages, the second story options? Like, what was intriguing about that to you?
Well, I'll tell you, Matt said something very complimentary a while back, and it really stood out to me because, when you go to engage people who have a history, a career path, that you recognize, like you said something to the effect that, for a small builder starting out, to have the wealth of knowledge in somebody that you wouldn't otherwise be able to have on staff in those early stages kind of solidified, what it is that I try to bring to that builder experience, for my clients. So, and maybe some of the best words I've heard it said. I love that you think that way. So I think the fit was natural because we had worked together in another environment, and this is a small world. I mean, our industry, you get to know people. So, I
Yeah.
mean, Matt could have chose from anybody across his, lengthy career path. So, I'm flattered that, you would think of me to do the work, and, for me to have the opportunity to engage in a complete product line development is special. Um, it's not just a one-off custom home, which is obviously special, but to take the importance of a young company putting together their dream, their product to go out and start this, this venture, it is something that I take very seriously, for my clients and their resources and how they spend money. So, to have that opportunity is not an everyday thing. So, and for some reason I embrace the challenge. I think that is what drives me, because it is not an easy type of architecture to design, we'll call it production housing, although it's very customizable the way you offer it. But to make all those parts and pieces fit is a challenge. It's not like a custom one-off. So I kind of take pride in having had a lot of that opportunity in my career, and bringing that to Tracewater with a team that gets it. That is the biggest factor. Like, you guys seek to understand. You already have an understanding of what I can do, and we make the best of that.
Yeah, absolutely. And you brought up a really good point about it being a challenge, and almost more challenging because you're trying to design one plan that could fit many different site-specific conditions. Whereas when you're doing a custom, you typically know the site-specific conditions that you're working with, and we're trying to design for such an unknown with Tracewater. So we did have to put in a lot of time and effort and back and forth on, well, maybe we should change this because what if, we encounter a situation like this and it won't work, on that specific site or with that situation. So I guess, would you transition into kind of how we developed those plans together in the back and forth? I mean, we spent probably 2 good years working together before we had solid plans that we were happy with. So would you just kind of walk us through what that process looked like, from kind of initial draft and then revisions, and kind of how we developed the plans over time?
Yeah, yeah, good points there, because a lot of times on the design side, I don't get the luxury to have the calendar days to make it come together, because there's an evolution to a plan, from the custom one-off to the product development of 5 plans that has to happen, and it's only going to come through, thoughtful discussion, and, the sketching, the back and forth, and the evolution of that makes for a better product for the home buyer, because we're thinking through details at a level that, the more time you can spend to make that evolution happen usually results in a better product. So, the criteria that comes along with an unknown lot and fixed widths of the home, and then trying to have a consistency across the options and upgrades that you offer. That's where a person can come in and, take that base plan and know that we've provided the amenities and the lifestyle through that design that should reflect, a favorable price to the buyer. And one thing that's always stuck out in my head is that, if your buyer's not willing to pay for it, you should not be adding it into your plans. So, that base plan, what I would call our lowest common denominator, has to be wow. It has to inspire the buyer to want to, purchase and live in that home. So, and then from there, the way let them personalize and offer options across every home plan that have to be repeatable. You have to be able to offer value in the price for those options, which you do through keeping them consistent from one plan to the next. Like, the outdoor kitchen is the same size on every plan. The upgrades are the same upgrades, whether it's the smallest footprint up to the largest footprint. So nobody feels left out in how they can personalize and enhance their lifestyle through those options. So, that all gets figured out on paper in what we did in design. So yeah, the 2 years that we took was very productive, back and forth to deliver something to the buyer that's, should resonate through curb appeal, price point, and the fact that you can build on their lot and produce something that's, they're going to know what they're going to get.
Absolutely.
I think one really cool aspect of all of that, that iterative process that we went through, and dialing all of that in is, we originally started out from the custom world, and we've been doing that in this market for quite some time. And as we moved into Tracewater Homes, the idea was let's get very systemized and in product and process and all of that. And now we're actually moving, the custom designs as a part of the Tracewater Home brand. But the cool part about that is we're able to bring the design features that we've worked on so hard into those custom homes and make that process smoother, much more thoughtful, and make that process much easier for our full custom clients as well.
Yeah, and the options that we're offering here in this product line, you wouldn't typically see from most production builders. So it kind of sets you apart to be able to offer these things and add value to the buyer. And I mean, outdoor showers. You thought of everything,
Yeah.
things you wouldn't typically see, and it's maybe a regional thing, but the lifestyle there on the coast, and you've nailed it through the product offering.
Yeah, we did put a lot of focus on, outdoor living and, how do people want to enjoy that home, outside of coming home and going to bed? What are they going to do between those hours? And in especially in the South, it's outdoor living and figuring out how we best maximize that space for them, and then also maximize, their time together as a family.
Perfect.
Yeah, I mean, we really do. We have a lot of outdoor options between the pool, the outdoor shower, outdoor kitchen, extended
Screen porch.
patio. You can screen the extended covered patio. Yeah, I mean, there are so many ways that you can spend time outdoors in a Tracewater home.
Absolutely.
Um,
And
so
obviously, I mean, for a buyer to be able to get that during the build, tied into a mortgage probably, and not have to go after market out of pocket, taking that step to provide, I think, is huge for the buyer.
Yeah, I've actually been hearing that a lot lately, specifically about the pool and, the fact that we even offer that to begin with. So many, production style builders would tell clients that they'd have to go hire their own pool company, later on after closing. And so I've heard from a few people recently, man, y'all offer a pool. That's amazing, that we can get that in our build.
Which how nice is that? You move into a new house, and then you have to hire somebody to come tear up your brand new backyard to put your pool in. Or with us, you move into a brand new house with the pool
And the backyard
and the
completed.
backyard completed,
Yes.
Much
Yep.
better situation.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. Yep.
So, Paul, would you mind going through, we talked a little bit about the plans and how we design them. Would you tell us, in your opinion, what makes a plan live well? What type of design elements from a day-to-day standpoint, living in the home, are really important in your design?
That is such a good question.
I can't
Yeah.
wait to hear the answer.
You've already seen the answer. So that comes from a career of doing this, most often for builders. So, trying to optimize the plan. Every square foot has to count. You really can't have waste. So that's one of the biggest things is the value of everything, inclusive. So with that, I try to minimize hallways, eliminate them where possible, and give that square footage to, a more enhanced bedroom or space, that normally you wouldn't get in the square footage of the plan that we put out there. So, the efficiency of the space, the hallways, and with that, of course, the traffic pattern. You have to consider how people are likely to furnish these spaces and where the best traffic pattern is to, again, not create wasted hallways or things that don't function. I like to have like dual functioning consideration out of this square footage, so it has, the most bang for the buck for the buyer as well. So, and then coming in through the front door, you really want to have a vista out to the back of the house. So having an alignment where the open space of the living area kind of explodes once you come in through the foyer, and you can see, windows out the back is important. Sight lines, obviously. are a big part of that.
Mhm.
So that and traffic patterns. So you don't have any walls that are wasted that can't be furnished, conveniently. So we've thought through that for the buyer. So, when they move in, thinking about where their bed's likely to be and what that leaves for the window wall, maximizing their views, right down to the outlets being located by the nightstands instead of in the middle of the bed, because we know that's the bed wall. And I know you guys have talked about this in other podcasts, and I love that you do, because it demonstrates the amount of thought that went into this product line to enhance people's lifestyle. So those are
Yeah.
some of the key things in design, for me. And I already talked about the options and the upgrades, and having a consistency through each plan, so that if you're struggling between one plan to the next, it's not going to be a decision between this option works here or it doesn't. We made them work across all of them, so that
Yeah, that
simplifies
was
things for the buyer.
one of the main goals, was to try to make those options as universal as possible. And,
Yeah.
I think you nailed it on almost everything.
And then other things in consideration with the size of the plan, from the entry level and the efficiency of it. What do you get when you're investing more into the bigger plan because you need the extra bedrooms for the size of the family? Well, with that, you're generally getting maybe a bigger kitchen, a few more cabinets, things that amenities that should also increase, in their appeal, because you are making a bigger investment, in a higher square footage. So that should be
Yeah.
reflected across, those key spaces that are so important to your lifestyle.
Yeah, that's such a valuable point where, you're not just throwing an extra bedroom in there to add square footage. You're dividing that square footage up among spaces that provide overall value in different locations.
Yeah. And you kind of hit it from both ways with, the thought and foresight to have, second floor options. So
Hmm.
while the first floor may not upgrade those amenities, you can get those bedrooms without impacting much of your plan, at a good value because it's in the roof line. So kudos on your thought process there.
Yeah, and the second story options that you drew for us are absolutely awesome. I mean, to be able to have that extra space with a couple bedrooms and a big family room, if you've got, a family with kids at home, they have their own space to go enjoy, and they're not out in the middle of the living room. It's a really, really well thought out space.
And you did something I had not yet seen, which I love, is one of those options is just big storage.
Oh
I've
yeah.
seen it. You always see it over a garage because that's easy space to grab. Um, but the fact that these are one-story homes and you're living in an area where you don't typically have basements, you've addressed an important part for people is storage. So that's a great option.
Yeah,
Smart.
we,
Yeah.
we joke about that being our southern basement. So
Yeah. We
Right.
just put it upstairs instead. And the other thing about that storage space, though, that I think is really unique, that we together with you put the time and effort into planning out, is that I tell people it really is like an unfinished basement that you would see in the north, except for that this one comes finished, with drywall and carpeting and stuff. But I had you go back, Paul, and add windows to even the storage option, where I think those didn't exist before. And that did two things for us. One, it kept consistency. So that way, no matter which second floor option a client chose, we always put in the same number of windows in the same location. So it was repetitive for the crews on site and stuff like that. But the other thing it did was give people the option to expand in the future. So if they can't afford the full second story right now, but they know that maybe they're going to have more kids downfield or something, and they want to plan for that, they can put that open room up there at a very affordable cost, and then add bedrooms later on, and they still have egress windows. So these count as legal, legitimate bedrooms. So we really did kind of plan it out like an unfinished basement in the north, where people will finish them off 5 years, 10 years after they move in.
That's exactly right. And it was kind of a curveball because I think I had designs, where I didn't have that constraint. So to talk about, the complexity of a design, and then, you know, you partner with a company that's providing, a metal frame home, better insurance rates, stronger home. I love that. Oh, but by the way, the windows have to be in the same location every time. Okay, fine. But it's brilliant because, that is showing the buyer, it's so well thought out, and it's offering better value too, because, there's less chance for error, of an intersecting option, in a window location that wasn't thought out thoroughly. So, you're preventing those types of things that just happen in construction. And that translates to a better value for the buyer. And, where you see that as a home buyer is, the fact that you include things that maybe the other competition is not. Like, I know a fridge is included. That's not typical, but
Yeah.
good design, lean plan design, optimizing value means you can give back with other amenities that they're not going to find in the marketplace. So that's a very smart way to do things and give your buyer, like I say, a better result.
Well, thank you, and thank you
Yes.
for all of your work in that, and for being receptive to some of our crazy ideas. I mean, there were, a lot of things that we threw at you, and you took it all in stride and made it happen. So we appreciate all of the effort that you put into bringing these plans to life.
Love the challenge. I appreciate you guys for making it a challenge. I would almost feel like we missed something if we didn't have that evolution.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, tell me about a specific design detail, and I have my answer on this. You actually already mentioned it in answering my last question, but I'm curious to see what you'll say on this. Tell me about a specific design detail in our plans that most people would walk right past, but once you point it out, they immediately get it and they'll never forget it.
Oh, wow.
That is a great question. And I was thinking about some of the code required things like a 2A door in a bathroom somewhere for access. And I'm like, well, that's a little different, but, there's a lot of good things that I like, but, even the smallest plan features walk-in closets. And I mean, that might not be typical. So, just to take that, again, that lowest common denominator, the starting point, a walk-in pantry, a walk-in closet, a separate laundry room that you don't have to walk through when you come off the garage. I mean, there's things that I just inherently want to see in a plan with all my years of doing this that, for the buyer not to have to come home after a long day of work and walk through a laundry room and see their pile of clothes. That's just more work waiting for them when they should be relaxing the evening. So that's lifestyle by design. We've put that in a separate room. It's not things that you may notice as a buyer. Sometimes it's subliminal, it's subconscious. Like you don't know what it is that you love about it, but you like it. And the same thing was with the curb appeal of the home. They can choose their elevation style, whether traditional, coastal, or the modern. I mean, that really gives them some choice and personalization. So when they're trying to tell the pizza guy which house is theirs down the street, well, it's the contemporary design with a single pitch roof. It's
Yeah.
something that they can make unique about their home that sets them apart. So yeah, there's a lot to pick on there. Now I'm curious to see what you were thinking.
Yeah, so my thought for that was the outlets in the
Yeah.
bedrooms not being right behind the headboard, because it's easy for people to miss. And every time I mention that to people, they're like, "Oh my gosh, I've never thought about that." But yes, in my home that I live in right now, that's a problem. We have an extension cord so my husband can charge his phone because the outlet's right in the middle of the
Yeah.
headboard.
Yeah.
And so things like that once you explain to people, now every time they go into one of our competitors' homes, they're going to look for that and say, do they have the outlet split? No. Okay, well, now Tracewater Homes has set a standard in my mind that I'm searching for in everything that I see.
Yes, that's awesome.
So
And a lot of that for me comes from, the years of doing it for a lot of builders, which is an education that I'm grateful to have had. And I tell people I've got a 30-year QC checklist of stuff that has accumulated through whether it was the trades, our trade partners in the field, the superintendents communicating how to make the plans better. It could be the sales team, what they're hearing from buyers. Our realtors engaging with the realtor community is important because they are representing, your product. And right down to, of course, if the builder has a warranty department, you'll get a lot of content from them, from the buyers on anything that's not right. So, that to me inherently becomes part of a design. And, your homes feature a lot of recessed lighting up a space that is not something you typically see from most home builders as a standard. So you guys have done a great job in providing more, probably through value, engineering and doing things cost effectively to be able to offer that and be competitive in the marketplace.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
definitely one of our goals is to, you said it exactly, offer more,
Yeah,
you know?
well, that transitions perfectly into what I was going to say next, which is that we recently saw somebody comment on a Facebook post in a local Facebook group asking about which builder would be right for them. And someone replied and commented and
Oh,
said,
yeah.
they all have to build to the same code. So who cares, basically, is what they were saying. If you buy a cheap production builder home or a high end custom, they're all building to the same code. And Matt's response to that is that building the code is like getting a D. That was the bare minimum to pass.
Right.
And so these things that we're talking about, these are the things that bring us up to A status, is thinking beyond just what code requires. I mean, electrically speaking, we talked about the outlets behind the bed. I mean, code says that when you come in, you're going to have an outlet within, I believe it's 6 feet of the door break, right? And then 12 feet linearly beyond that, throughout the room. And a lot of these builders are just going, okay, 6 feet, we put one, 12 feet, we put one, and they're not actually thinking about the way that the home is living. They're just building the code, getting that D, and
I
D's might
love
have
it.
gotten degrees, but they don't make quality homes. So
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. What happens with placing those in ideal locations is probably you're going to have a couple extra above code that the other guys aren't paying for, but you have to offer it and still be competitive in price. So yeah, I love your analogy on that, Matt, and the awareness, and hopefully they're doing the research and looking at these podcasts to hear what is it that sets you apart.
yeah.
Um, you guys definitely pulled it off.
The second thing that I would add to that question that I think really sets us apart is storage. We put a lot of time and effort into intentional storage spaces in the home. And like you said, Paul, about not having to walk through and see all your laundry piled up, that's more work for you to do. Clutter, it creates chaos in the mind. That's not a peaceful existence. And so when you have a place to put things, your home just lives so much better. When things are out of sight, and it's not so much out of sight, out of mind, but like towels in the bathroom, having like linen storage is a really big one for me. I hate if I walk into a bathroom and the only place to put things is the cabinet under the sink. That's not enough space for me to put towels, extra shampoo, my toothbrush, all of the things that you need to store. So having either a linen closet or in the bathrooms where we couldn't, we designed a linen tower, a tall pantry style cabinet in there where you've got a space to put that stuff where it's hidden and out of the way.
Yeah.
So
And again, another feature that would not be standard in most.
no.
Right.
So
And another one of those things where, once people see it, I hope that they go into every other builder's home and go, huh, they don't have linen storage. Like now that's something that they're seeking out in every other builder's home that they tour.
yeah, and hopefully they're paying attention, like I said, and doing the research because as a builder, they say the quickest way to go bankrupt is build a home the way you want it to live.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you're competitive. You're offering a lot of things better, and it is the way you would live in it. So again, win-win all around.
Yeah, absolutely. Matt, I'll turn this one over to you.
Ooh, all right.
So as we talk about, I mean, you briefly mentioned, that Tracewater is going to be offering full custom now too.
Yeah.
So as we talk about that from the Tracewater flagship plans and the semi-custom side, what types of things are customizable? Because we offer custom option requests.
Ah, yes.
So like at what point would somebody say, okay, or at what point would you tell somebody, okay, this is too many custom option requests, we really should move you over to a full custom design? Where's that balance, I
Yeah,
guess?
I mean, so generally speaking, I mean, we have a lot of ability to, move and manipulate things around on the inside of the home. So somebody says, hey, I want to, expand my kitchen and make a bedroom a little smaller. We have the ability to do some of those things. Where we run into having to really move into a custom design is the minute we start changing exterior walls. If we're going to push and pull the foundation, all of a sudden now everything changes, all of our engineering changes. So we're really moving into that full custom design at that point. Not to say we won't base your custom design on one of our existing plans, because we can certainly do that to speed up the process. But we just all of a sudden are in a different category when we have to start redesigning all of our trusses, all of our foundation plans, and everything like that. So really, that's kind of the cutoff. Is like inside the house, we have a lot more optionality as far as if somebody has a custom option that they want to propose to us. We're very open to it. Once we start moving those walls, that's going to change that a little bit.
Well, and I like the way that you provided the explanation behind that, because we've already priced out the flagship plans as they are.
Yeah.
Now you start moving walls, your trusses get longer, so they have to be re-engineered so that they can, span that new distance, which adds cost that, we don't have factored in. So it's not no because we don't want to redesign, it's no because it completely changes the pricing structure. And I
Right.
think that's important for people to understand, is that we design these plans and put these prices to them as they are. The more custom you get, now the costs are really what start to change significantly.
Yep. Exactly.
So
Can I talk about a recent one we did?
yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. Go ahead.
To everything you just said, I mean, from my point of view, like I got to be the creative guy to think about alternative ways to get it done, working within the footprint. So that buyer was talking about, a vacation rental to start, and maybe didn't need that extra bedroom, but wanted the bigger living space and a bigger kitchen, or, move the kitchen. So, working with the existing walls and to do it in a way that doesn't compromise the structure or add a lot of cost, as you described. I mean, that's where I love to figure it out for the buyer, so they don't, necessarily have to go down the custom route, and find ways to be creative about getting it done. And I think we made some trade-offs that maybe, they didn't think to talk about, but if I get the chance to ask the right questions and lead a conversation, we've got a couple different options to have the buyer be able to pick from.
Yeah, yeah, and you absolutely knocked it out of the park on that one, because that scenario was they wanted to eliminate a bedroom and use that space to expand their kitchen and dining space on the main floor, and then get more bedroom space by adding the second story. So by making those changes without impacting the exterior of the house at all, we were able to do that and still create an efficient process for that construction.
Absolutely, yeah. And they may not realize. I mean, the custom path is a little different, but I've seen it go both ways. So if you can do the custom home in the process of a production home, that is phenomenal for the buyer. So they don't have to experience all the pitfalls of custom and what tends to happen for most people. So process and procedure has to be paramount to the buyer's success as well. So being able to offer that customization and, do it in a already proven system.
Well, and that actually brings up another add-on point to that. And whether we're doing our pre-designed plans or we're doing a full custom, the process of building for us is going to be the same. And we have the opportunity to use those same finishes that are pre-curated, designer curated finishes, that we are able to then put into that custom home, and it allows us to bring the cost on that custom home down dramatically, by comparison to some of the competition that's out there in the market.
Yeah, and you keep the schedule compact instead of open-ended and exploration and picking products that weren't designed for the plan and things of that nature. So it's definitely good for the buyer too.
Yep, absolutely.
Yeah, for sure. Well, on the custom side of things, since we brought that up, or I mean, even just the Tracewater flagship plans, I mean, we put this thought into it so that the buyers didn't have to. But Paul, what's something that buyers don't usually think about when designing a new home that they really should, in terms of, how it lives, or, I guess I'll
Yeah.
let you answer the question.
Yeah, and I talk about that a lot on my videos and such. But to me, it is that 30-year accumulation of a QC checklist that is inherent in design for me, right down to the small, like the outlet placement, that affects how somebody lives and how they experience their home. So, right from the point of entry off the garage and not having to walk through a laundry room. But beyond that is where you're dropping your stuff. Where's the drop zone, the bench? Where's the storage? Where's the the AV, the tech mail drop station? Is it the command center near the kitchen for, the computer to run the family and everything that we have with technology? Is it, smart home automation and things that are out there right now that, a lot of builders haven't really touched very much of, but it's thinking about the little things that are going to make the difference, that
Yeah.
impact lifestyle. So, and those are, things on the custom side that I will engage in a conversation. I call it my interrogation meeting, because I'm going to ask them about their day-to-day lifestyle, get them to think about progressions through the space, the holiday, the special events, the traffic patterns, and then, add the thought and plant these seeds about, think about how you're going to walk through the space and what you might need, and, really breaking it down in great detail so I can put on paper and design what needs to be a finished product that delights the user in the end.
Nice.
Yeah,
I love that.
absolutely. I do too. So, Matt, this one's for you, kind of on the custom side of things, or even Tracewater flagship plans, but on a lot that has some challenges. Now we're talking about being a little bit more custom. It's a Tracewater design plan, but we have to figure some different things out. What is the most common site challenge that you see around here? And I mean, obviously,
Ooh.
Paul has to then get involved in that too and kind of redo some things with the foundation. Would you kind of walk us through that process a little
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I mean, there are a lot of different things. I mean, especially when you're building in a coastal area, but even inland, you still have to deal with, wetlands and things like that. Topography can be one of our bigger challenges that we deal with. And in fact, we just did one where it's a trace water plan, one of our standard plans, but the lot drops about 14 feet from front to back. And so we had to design the home on very tall pilings, and make that work, for this particular site. We also run into things with, wetlands and things like that we have to deal with on the site. So that's more so on the custom side, where we may have to push or pull, the boundaries of the house to fit, certain buffer lines and things like that. And that's where, when you get into that custom piece, Paul's just really good at saying, okay, we've got this much square footage to work with as a footprint. Now, how do we utilize that in the best way possible? Yeah,
And you
those
were
are
like
the bigger
a
challenges.
magician on that particular. If I'm thinking, they got a pool on top of that in the site with
Yeah.
lands and setbacks, and I honestly didn't think it was going to work, but bouncing around what can work and what could be, really found a way to make it happen. I was impressed.
We did. We were able to tuck the pool in partially under the house, and yeah, get the whole thing to work well.
Amazing.
It really is. Well, that's one thing that I have to give Matt a lot of credit for, is that I don't know if he's ever met a lot that he couldn't conquer. So there have been lots that I think he's been told were unbuildable, and he was like, "Well, you think it's unbuildable, but check this out." Yeah. So
Well, this is true.
there's always a way. It just depends on how creative you want to get. How much time or money it might cost, but there's always a way to make something happen. So.
Absolutely.
And working with somebody like Paul, obviously, you might have the idea or kind of the thought on how you can make it work, and then he takes that vision and brings it to life.
Boom. There it
So-
is on paper.
I thrive on the challenge. If it was all just easy, hate to say it just wouldn't be. I wouldn't be as passionate about it. I mean, I like easy, but that challenge is really what drives to perform and step beyond. Go to the next level and make it happen for your buyer. So the kind of the brain trusts in your group, and my opportunity to work with that is very enjoyable.
Yeah, I'm thinking about the one too where we had we had the house all designed and with the carriage house, and then found out they didn't have utilities to the property that they were told they did, and we had to reconfigure things a little bit to be able to add a septic on their site, and then
Yeah.
we moved and pivoted really fast, and man, it turned out amazing.
Yeah.
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 And it was about as tight as it could possibly be. I mean,
Yeah.
the corner of the carriage house post came down on the corner of the septic. I mean, this all was so perfect, I mean, we made it happen. So
Yeah.
And
Awesome.
I mean, I can speak to working with Paul from the client standpoint.
yeah.
I mean, you designed the duplex that I live in that we now offer as a Tracewater plan. And my wife and I started with, you know, kind of what I would call like a napkin sketch on that one. And we just sat at the coffee table and started drawing stuff up, and then brought it to you, and you brought us back a plan, and you said, hey, I kind of like where y'all are going with this, but I think we could do some cool things here. And so we, you know, would implement that, and then I'd, you know, see something else. And like you talked earlier about kind of the evolution, it just kind of organically grew as we would bounce ideas back and forth off of each other. And I mean, you took everything that we wanted and then added your own spin to it, and I mean, it turned out to be amazing. Talk about an efficient design. I mean, there's not a square foot of wasted space in that plan, you know. So
I love to hear it. You just pinpointed. It's kind of the difference between drafting and design. They're two different things. I do both.
yeah,
That design and pulling together again the fortunate experiences that I've had along my career, and giving you options and opportunity to make it your own and how you wanted to see things. Bringing that together, you know, obviously win-win, right?
yeah.
That to me is the buyer experience that I strive for, and to be able to hit that home run.
Well, and what I think is really cool about that is that you presented the option and presented your idea, but then let us choose which, if any, of your options you presented we wanted to go with. There was never any pressure like, hey, you need to design your home this way. It was still our home and our design. You just kind of guided, hey, maybe you haven't thought about it from this side, and I have these 30 years of experience that I bring to the table, that I can present you with these different options. But it really still was our home at the end of the day, which is amazing, you know, for clients that are watching this, to hear that, you know, they can work with you, and you're not gonna bulldoze their ideas or their vision or their plan. You're just gonna help make it better. So
Well, I love that, to hear that. And you know, I tell my clients that I'm not here to use your resources, your money to put me on the cover of a magazine. Hey, that's great if that happens, but I take the customer's resources as seriously as if it was my own, and how do I want to invest that to add value. So, you know, in design, it's offering options, because if my interrogation meeting doesn't draw out the exact answer that I might need down the road, I won't know it till I get there. So providing vignettes of different sketch options, then you take those pieces of the puzzle and plug them in how you want to live in your home. And that's just, you know, simple, quick things you can do in sketch form to you know, give that buyer the experience of being able to personalize and make it your own.
yeah, absolutely.
Thank you for explaining.
Of course. Matt, do you have any final thoughts that you would like to share?
I don't, other than just to say, Paul, thank you for coming on today, and, you know, providing our viewers just such a wealth of information. And it's such a great partnership. So we enjoy working with you so much.
I was just going to say, I do love and appreciate the partnership, and look forward to, you know, continued being a part of the team. I treat it like, you know, I'm your staff member in house, and here to serve whatever I can do.
Well,
Amazing.
we certainly appreciate all that you do for us. And for those that are watching, if you didn't know before, you do now. We have an incredible architect, whether you're looking to purchase one of the homes that he's already designed, or have him help you design your completely custom dream home. Reach out to Tracewater Homes, and let's get you in touch with Paul so that we can bring that vision to life and build something beautiful together. Visit tracewaterhomesfl.com for more information, and contact our sales team today. Thank you, Paul, and we'll see you all next time.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank
Thank you.